Thank you, Kathy. It's a great honor to be here and to give a talk. But I must confess that this talk was not planned. Before I accepted this invitation, I had already accepted 2 invitations for a talk here, also from India. So I tried to make a differentiation from other 2 talks. So that's why I chose this topic. And look at this. This is I draw this roadmap more than 20 years ago. That was October 1990 when I attended a conference held at Cambridge University. Recall that during that year, Soviet Union and East European regime collapsed, and very radical reform started. In contrast, in China, we just had the 6·4 June 4th event year before, and economic reform in China at the time actually setback. Economic growth was the lowest in that year, 1999, was just 3.8%, the lowest during the whole economic reform period. Now, when I attended this conference, I find is most participants of the conference ignored China. They didn't take China serious. They all thought Russia and East European is taking right direction. China taking wrong direction of reform, even not totally failed. But I didn't agree with that. So I draw this roadmap to tell them, yeah, you are not right. My basic idea is economic reform should go before political reform. So if you look at this roadmap, there's a size of area represent how important during different periods of reform. Basically, 70 years was just inserted 2 years ago when we celebrate 30 years of reform. But this basic roadmap was original. And I show that it's the first 30 years. It's mainly China conducted economic reform. As Marshall also introduced some political reform. I must say that although most white people thought China didn't take any political reform, that is not true. China did something, although not so big. But in the next 30 years, it will be totally different. I think political reform will become the most important reform. So that is what I mean, next stage reform. So we come back to say how or why I argue that political economic reform should go before political reform. And we also say marketization should go before democratization. There are several reasons. First, I think we need to have a better boundary between market and government. Now, many people have high expectation of democracy, but I think democracy is some choice. If we have no other choice, that's the second best, not the first best. First, we need to let people have freedom to make their choice. What is the difference between market and government or democracy? Like this, if we have dinner this evening, market means everyone has his right to make choice with his own money. What is democracy? Democracy, we must have the same food this evening. So first we need to vote, we have procedure. Certainly we can also have dictator to decide what we should eat. But democracy means we vote. Majority vote, we have rice, we will have rice. Majority side we have noodle, we will have noodle. So unless we cannot solve this choice problem through market, we do not show like the government, even democratic government, do that. Otherwise, I think it will be a big waste and inefficiency. And we also talk like freedom and democracy together, but I think there is something is very, very different. Very different. Freedom is market, is a foundation of a market. And democracy only is a collective choice, it's no individual choice. And if government controls a lot of resources, even you introduce the democracy, corruption cannot be avoided, like India and other countries. Many countries have a democratic election, but their government is very, very corrupted. The reason is they put too much choices into government hands. So that is why I think the first we need to introduce a market, let more people have a choice, and before we do a democracy. Second argument I think is middle class is very important. Only when we have middle class, those people have sense of responsibility. They will make a serious choice when they elect like leadership or make other choices. If we just have kind of penniless people, when they make decisions, normally in economics we call it cheap voting, that they have a right, but they do not take responsibility. And that is not good. The only when we have most people become like middle class people, I think we can have a responsible and really good democracy. Also, I think it's very important we can change law and change leadership overnight, but we cannot change culture, cannot change people's behavior overnight. So this must take a long time. That's my basic argument 20 years ago, and also today, certainly. Now, let me give you a very brief description of economic reform in China in past 30 years and more. In summary, I think four major reforms we have done. First is price liberalization. Second is ownership privatization. Third is decentralization, I mean from central to local. Fourth is globalization. Those four aspects, I think, summarize most of our reform. And I just give you a very simple statistics to show this. First, let us say price reform. Before, let me give you an example. Maybe here is most students are business school students. In 1980s, Chinese government invited American professors to design curriculum for Chinese state-owned firms managers. American professors proposed, then they submitted their proposal to Chinese government, and Chinese government officials deleted two courses. Which two courses, you guys? First is marketing. Second is corporate finance. Because at that time marketing was useless. All prices set by government, sales. Company only responsible for production. No sales, no marketing. So marketing useless in China at that time. Second is corporate finance. Why? Because all firms submit their profit, if they have profit, to government when they need budget, and they apply to the government. The firm level, there is no autonomy to do any investment decision. That is totally different today. Today, marketing and corporate finance become most important courses in all MBA curriculum and also other programs. This change, I think, is very, very symbolic for Chinese economic reform. So look at here. It's a price reform for products goods. Like at the beginning of reform, almost 100% of the prices were set by government, controlled by government. China took 15 years to complete this price reform. That is by 1993. Look at here, more than 80% of prices were liberalized. That's determined by market, not by government. Another is ownership reform. This is employment in state sector and non-state sector in urban area. In 1987, 78% of urban employment was state employees. But by 2007, you can say only 22.7% was state employees. That included government, included state companies. So this figure shows that is how much we have done so far. So it's basically, I think today is, although it's government or state sector still dominate some we call key industries, but in terms of GDP, state sector just produce 35%. Yeah. So that is two, I think, most important reform. And this reform actually, produced a very, very important thing that is, I call it middle class and the business people, entrepreneurs. It's very, very different. In another context, one side is the most fundamental change of China, that we changed from position-based rights to property-based rights. And under the planning system, all rights were attached to position. Only when you're working with the government, you have high position. You can enjoy this kind of right, investment, even living material, like what kind of house, what kind of car you can have, whether you can have, all determined by your position. No, we are property-based right society, by which I mean when you have money, you can enjoy it, and you can make investment, you can enjoy your life. I caught Sima Qian's words that was more than 2,000 years ago. He said, 天津之家比一都之君，聚万者与王者同乐。Sorry, let me explain further in Chinese. 当你有1000斤的时候，你过的生活和一个督军差不多啊，就是一个市长差不多吧。当你有10000斤的时候，你过的日子啦和一个国军差不多，跟国王差不多。That is today's Chinese situation. We will find rich business people. His house may be bigger than minister level people. He has more luxury car than Hu Jintao. And if you have money, you can do anything. So that is today's China different from 30 years. 30 years ago, even 20 years ago, only when you have the position, you can enjoy this. Today is different. So incentive system totally changed. So our society now requires further reform. Actually, I think it's a next stage reform, next 30 years. I see. Certainly, next 30 years, I think economic reform is still in agenda. I think basically, China needs to retail privatize the state sector. By retail privatize, I mean today is different from 20, 30 years ago. At that time, we discussed how to change the state sector. It's so difficult because nobody knows how so big firm. Today different. Almost the most state companies were already listed in stock market. Although government still control like 70, 80% share, the dominant owner. But it's easy to reduce the shareholding of government, like it's 10%, 5% gradually. So I think in this sense, state sector reform is become like technical issues, and not like 20 years, 30 years ago. That was a political issue. And anyway, at that time it was very, very difficult. Today it's very, very easy to do that. There's all shares have market price. We will not have such things like in Russia. Russia, they give coupon to other people. Some small group of people took bought this and become very, very rich. Other people lost. China is different. If we distribute shares of state sector to everyone, everyone knows its price. There will be no big income or inequality issues. But I think more important, as I said, is political reform will become dominant agenda. We all now realize this, although it's the first stage of reform, economic reform is the most important. But by this time, without the further political reform, even economic reform cannot be consolidated. particular like last 3 years, it's the government takes some renationalization policy, and some private sectors face more pressure, and even they were forced to sell their assets, their firms to government. This is because the government is still so powerful, and state sector become vested interest group control. They also call the state sector, called state company, but they work not for nation, not for country, not for all we call the family or people. They work for special interest group. So this become a very serious issue. Also, I think another issue is the legitimacy of political leaders. All war winners had legitimacy to control country. Even in United States, Washington, he won, so he became president, first president. And China, Chairman Mao had legitimacy, Deng Xiaoping had legitimacy, but Jiang Zemin, and Hu Jintao is even worse. Now, for the next, a simple question is, why you are there, not me? For what reason? So I think this is a big challenge. When leadership has no confidence of their legitimacy, they all like to take some like popular leaders, like Wen Jiabao, they always like Qingmin. Yeah. So it's difficult for leaders to make really tough, but it's very important decisions for country. So that is why I think we cannot want this change, political reform. But how political reform should go, it's difficult to answer. But first, I think political reform also needs to be very, very gradual. Cannot be very radical. Like British Glorious Revolution, I think much better than French Revolution. In history, all revolution did very, very little good for people. I think China needs to learn this. So the Chinese economic reform should be gradual process. And also I think it's probably in the next 30 years, the first 50 years, most important to build an independent judicial system. Today China's judicial system is like court, judge, or appointed, controlled by party. This must change. We must let this court have their independent decision. And this is the first step. Why this is important? Suppose in future we have a general election. Some will get more votes than others. But if those lawyer didn't accept, no, I will not leave my office. I'm still here. You can't move in. Now that's a big problem. But if we have independent judicial system, that could be judged, decided by court. Like Taiwan and even America, some years ago, George Bush and Gore, they also have, a dispute. But the court decided who is the winner. So we must have, I think, the independent judicial system is most important for next 50 years. Second phrase, I think that could be democratic election. But I think we face a real challenge, like how to combine democracy with meritocracy, with elite control. I think my opinion is society, good society, healthy society, must be controlled by elite people, and not the ordinary crowd. That is very, very important. But we need to give ordinary crowd some right that we call it democracy, to control, to restrict government behavior. And in China, I think Chinese tradition also we need to think about that. That is 我们叫精英控制、精英管 That's very, very important. So I think probably if you in China, if we have a China election, maybe not one person by law. At least, I think, first stage. Maybe we need to have something like Hong Kong. We call it a functional group election. It's society have different functions like education, science, industry, lawyer. Yes. Then each of them have their representative. Then we vote for some leaders. I think that would be more responsible, more responsible, I think. Rather than we just have, so many people have, that would be, I think, at least the first stage would be very, very chaotic. That would be not good. Certainly, we need to discuss this. Probably currently we have not much discussed about this. We didn't very well prepared. So currently, China lost its reform momentum. Government or some people, even leaders, talk a lot, but do nothing. Do very, very little. That is very different from 1980s, 1990s. That time we doing, but without saying. Today we are saying without doing. Lots of talking. Political reform is so important. We must do that. We really do that. So I think it's more like it's you practice very hard without girl your car. 轰油门the car does not move. So that's the problem. Yeah. And one reason I think today the interest group is too strong. And also today's politicians, as I said, they didn't have a legitimacy like Deng Xiaoping. So they are not so has so strong authority to do something right. And also politically they are very, very risk-averse. So probably I think we need to wait for another crisis before we can start our reform. That is a tragedy, and it's not good. But history shows that maybe we have no other way. Yeah. So that is a problem. Now, like our state sector reform, I have talked actually before 1992. Government policy will just improve the efficiency of the state sector by institutions like profit sharing or autonomy. Then 1992, the whole industry sector, their loss bigger than profit. But there's no other way the government can privatize. But that is an example. Actually, in Chinese reform history, almost every important reform measures were adopted during crisis or because of crisis. Yeah. Today, China has, I think, very, very easy life. We become number 2 in the world. State sector still make a profit, so it's no good incentive and strong pressure for government make change. But anyway, I think it's for this reform, future reform, 30 years, we need leadership. Leadership means people who are very, very, sorry, I ran down, visionary, not version, yeah. Very, very visionary. And they have ideas about the future, what they want. So like Deng Xiaoping. So in this case, those leaders, even they like to sacrifice their short-term interest to pursue long-term interest. Like they just want to become great man. No other reasons. So they can sacrifice material interest. Just want to be great man. That is important. So we still need to wait for a few years. Don't expect any change this year or next year. Our leadership will change. Actually, during since 2003, there was no fundamental reform China has done. No fundamental reform. But future is so uncertain. I don't know how about the next generation leaders. What they will do. I'm not sure. I just hope there will be some great leadership come in China next few years. Maybe Jiang Zemin can still play some important role. Yeah. But I think the whole world's future depends on China's reform. And thirdly is also India. India is different from China. They did democracy before marketization. In China, just reversed. Now, if India's economic reform becomes successful, and China's political reform failed, I think the whole world would be, is very, very different. Yeah. If we suppose China's reform, it will be political reform, it will be smoothly successful. I think the future is more like this. I think there's a correlation between population and size and the GDP size of each country. Data drawn from Professor Manderson these years. Year of 2000, almost perfectly correlated. Big population, big country, big GDP. And until 1920, that's still very, very highly correlated. Like 0.994, it's still quite big. Then fall down, and until 1973, almost no correlation. Like a big country can be small economy, small country can be big economy. But after China's reform, this is reverse. Now it's a correlation between here and here, and by 2003, it become 0.5. Yeah. If this trend will continue, our human history in past few hundred, will reverse. It's a great divergence will become great convergence. So you need to think about that. What will be? You do yourself. What will do future? Yeah. I think it's that is yeah. I talk. I know I didn't say something. I didn't say much. I don't know. I don't know. But I think it's easier. It's quite. I need to discuss. Thank you very much.
Fascinating and insightful discussion on the next stage of economic and political reform in China. And in case you don't know, Professor Zhang has a new book published last year, The Logic of the Market. So you can read more about his theories.
Thank you.
Now we would like to open for Q&A. Please be brief, state your name, and please refrain from making long statements. Thank you. Hi, Professor Zhang. So regarding the political revolutions that is happening right now across the North Africa, how do you feel that will affect China's political reform? I mean, there are a political reform revolution happening around the North Africa.
Oh, yeah.
So how does that feel?
I think satellite is all has an impact on China. But so far, I have no big worry that China will have a similar thing happen. I do not think that is a problem. But let's feel that is under the system like China or the Middle East. In some sense, anything can happen anytime. Yeah. Well, my judgment is maybe in next few years no big change, but it cannot be too long.
Question. Your first chart looks like the political reforms very smoothly for the next 30 years. So you must have certain kind of assumption inside. In other words, there's no any spike, right? The spike is pretty much like in the in Africa now or in the Middle East now. So what's your assumption?
That's my roadmap. You can draw different roadmap. But I mean, here is no whole ideas. What I mean is, as I said, first you need to have economic reform, the more important, first 30 years. Then second 30 years, so totally our reform here is like 60 years. That's good figure, good number, 60 years. Maybe you can recall that is from Opium War. That was totally 200 years. The whole China's changed, modern China's changed from 1840 to 2040. Yeah, and certainly maybe there are some even revolution is possible, But if government or responsible people really take serious this, and we try to avoid that, that's not good, Only I think good is greater change. Not a revolution, but evolution. That's most important.
That's why. And my name is Li Jing. I'm from Zhejiang University of Finance and Economics. And I have a lot of questions, but I try to small my question. I think China is very dangerous. I always feel that China is standing at the edge of the cliff. Though the GDP growth is very rapid, and though the tax revenue is increasing 20% per year, though the private section, the export and imports on the GDP has a very large volume. But I think the Chinese government, I think almost all the Chinese economic issues will be sorry, hold on. Almost all the economic issues will be decided by the government. For example, the inflation. The inflation is created by the government. He encouraged the export and import. He get money as US dollars from the enterprise. And he issued the RMB. And he has very strict control over the RMB. So my question is, what's your prediction on the government fiscal control of the economy?
I think you are right. Currently, government control too much resources, and too much regulations. I hope that will be changed. One prediction that like today, state sector is 35% in terms of GDP. I predict maybe in 10 to 20 years it will become under 10%. There are several reasons. One reason is government already promised a lot of social welfare expenditure, like social security, medical insurance, and so on. In some years, government will not be able to pay this with their budget. So probably the only way is to sell state sector shares. Even today, they began to do that. Use state sector to they give some shares to like a social security fund. I think so that will change. Also, government budget cannot be increased like every year 20-30%. This field is very, very special. One reason is some people or companies didn't pay tax in the past. This year's government strengthens measures to collect tax. That we cannot continue. And let me say that why I think I talk this. I also published a book, as mentioned, the logic of market. I really believe that I think our future depends on ideas. So, like historical materialism or something, the least will do. This is not right, Reality, what we will have depends on what we think today. So let me predict. I think that if our people, or government, other people, economists, other people, will have more confidence in market and individual choices. We can avoid that. Otherwise, like today, many people believe government. When we have trouble, like financial crisis, always say this market failure, we need government help, even in America. No, that is, I think, very, very dangerous. So we need to have good theory. And to convince people, really what is right for a nation, for ordinary people.
One last question, only a short one, sorry.
very much for coming and giving such an insightful speech. I have a quick question. We talk about political reform, gradual reform, and have the elite rule China, 经治国. What's your thoughts on what kind of supervision system, like check and balance, that China should have to prevent those elites becoming a special interest group?
I think it's a call. I think it's as I said, judicial independence is very, very important. Certainly, media is also important. But we need to understand that democracy, purpose of democracy is to save government from do bad things, not encourage government to do good things. That is why I argue that if government have very, very little control over resources, it doesn't matter. But if government control lots of resources, if you have general election type democracy, it doesn't work. Corruption will be very, very pervasive, serious. Yeah, so it's very important to reduce the domain of government control. Thank you.